Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to speak to you about the storms that come into our lives, the trials that shake us, and the hope that we have in God. Each of us at some point will face a storm, whether it's a personal struggle, a financial challenge, or a crisis of the heart. But I am here to remind you of a truth that is eternal and unshakable. This storm will pass, and through it all, you must believe in God. Life is full of challenges, and if we're honest, we know that no one is exempt from the storms that arise. Storms are an inevitable part of existence. They come without warning, often catching us by surprise. But it's important to understand that these storms don't define who we are. They don't determine the course of our lives unless we allow them to. Instead, storms refine us. They shape us in ways that nothing else can. When the winds howl and the rains pour, we may feel as if the world is falling apart. We may wonder why we're going through these struggles, why it seems like everything is against us. But in those moments, we must remind ourselves that every storm serves a purpose. Storms have a divine intention behind them, and their ultimate goal is not to destroy us, but to transform us. Just as a powerful storm can reshape the landscape, so too can the difficulties in life reshape our character and our perspective. Think of a tree standing firm in a storm. The winds may bend its branches and the rain may try to uproot it, but the tree endures. Over time, storms strengthen the roots of the tree, making it more resilient, able to withstand greater forces. Similarly, the storms in our lives strengthen our inner resolve. They reveal to us the depths of our faith, testing not just how strong we are, but how deeply we trust in God. While we may feel vulnerable in the midst of the storm, it is through these moments that we truly learn how to lean on God's strength, not just our own. Sometimes storms last longer than we anticipate. We may have hoped they would pass quickly, but instead they linger, pushing us to our limits. Yet, in the midst of this prolonged struggle, we learn the invaluable lesson of patience. God doesn't always work on our timeline, but His plan is always perfect. We may not understand why the storm persists, but we can trust that there is a purpose in the waiting. Through the waiting, God molds us, prepares us, and refines us to become who He has called us to be. When we're in the thick of it, it can be difficult to see beyond the storm. All we want is for it to end, for the skies to clear, and for peace to return. But every storm, no matter how severe, eventually passes. The clouds break, the winds die down, and the rain ceases. Life returns to a sense of normalcy, but we must remember this truth. Just as a storm passes, so too will the challenges in our lives. The storm is temporary. It is not the end, but rather a phase that we must endure with faith. The difficulties we face today may feel overwhelming, but they are not permanent. There is always hope for a brighter tomorrow. The transformation that takes place in the midst of a storm is not always easy to see while we are going through it. It's only when we look back that we can understand how far we've come. The trials we face serve as stepping stones, pushing us forward, even when we don't feel like moving. They build in us the perseverance and strength that we need for the future. Without these storms, we wouldn't experience the level of growth and maturity that God has designed for us. Our faith would remain weak, our resolve uncertain. But through the storm, we become stronger, more grounded in the promises of God. There is something deeply powerful about the human spirit that is tested and refined in adversity. While storms may bring discomfort, confusion, and even pain, they also bring clarity. They clarify what really matters in life. They show us who we truly are, what we are made of, and what we're capable of when we rely on God. The storms in our lives may not be of our choosing, but they are part of God's greater plan for us. We are not alone in these battles. God's presence is with us in every storm, guiding us, comforting us, and helping us stand firm. Through the storms, we also learn how to help others. There is a unique connection between those who have gone through struggles and those who are currently facing them. When we emerge from the storm, we can offer a word of encouragement, a listening ear, or a helping hand to those who are in the midst of their own battles. Our experiences become tools that God uses to touch the lives of others. Storms are not to be feared, but rather They should be embraced as opportunities for growth. The difficulties we face in life are not meant to break us. They are meant to make us stronger. When the storm clouds gather and the winds begin to blow, let us remember that these challenges are temporary. God has already prepared a way out. He has already designed a future for us that is filled with hope, peace, and victory. All we need to do is hold on to our faith, trust in His timing, and believe that just like the storm, our challenges will pass. Faith is not simply about having everything figured out or living without any difficulties. In fact, the true essence of faith is revealed most clearly in the midst of adversity. It is easy to talk about faith when life is calm, when everything is going according to plan, and when we feel in control of our circumstances. But when life brings uncertainty, when the storm clouds roll in, and when we are faced with challenges that seem insurmountable, that is when the depth of our faith is truly tested. Faith is not about the absence of the storm. It's about trusting in God's ability to carry you through it. It's about knowing that even when the winds are howling and the rains are pouring, God is still in control. He is the one who holds the universe in His hands, and He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. His promises remain unshaken by the storms of life. In the middle of the storm, God's power and faithfulness do not change. He is constant in all seasons. When adversity strikes, it can be tempting to look at the situation and let fear take hold. We may ask ourselves why this is happening, or whether we'll be able to handle it. But faith calls us to look beyond the circumstances and to fix our eyes on the one who is greater than any storm. Faith says, though I cannot see the way forward, I trust that God will guide me through. It's easy to let doubt creep in during the difficult times, but that's when we need to lean into God's promises the most. God's word is clear. He will never leave us nor forsake us. He is our refuge and our strength, an ever-present help in times of trouble. The storms may come, but they do not have the power to shake the foundation of our faith, because that foundation is built on the rock of God's eternal love and faithfulness. Faith is not blind optimism or wishful thinking. It is the confident assurance that God is with us, no matter what we face. There are moments when the storm feels overwhelming and the future seems uncertain. Yet, it is precisely in these moments that faith becomes a choice. We choose to trust, even when we don't understand the why or the how. We choose to believe that God's plan is greater than anything we could ever imagine, and that He will make a way where there seems to be no way. Faith does not mean that the storm will disappear immediately, or that we will always see the immediate answers to our prayers. But it does mean that we trust in God's ability to carry us through, no matter what the outcome may be. When life brings uncertainty, we have to hold fast to what we know about God. We know that He is good, that He is faithful, and that His love for us is unchanging. His character does not shift like the tides of the sea. He is our anchor in the storm. Even when the waves are crashing around us, we can rest in the certainty that He is with us, guiding us and providing for us. The beauty of faith is that it enables us to rise above the storm. Faith is not passive, it is active. It's a choice we make every day, even when it feels like everything is falling apart. It's choosing to believe that God has a purpose in everything, even when we can't see it clearly. The more we trust God, the more we experience His peace that surpasses all understanding. This peace doesn't come from a lack of trouble, but from knowing that God is greater than the trouble we face. In every season of life, faith in God provides the strength and courage to keep moving forward. It gives us the assurance that we are not walking this path alone. No matter how high the waves or how fierce the winds, God is right there with us, guiding us safely through. He has promised to be our ever-present help in times of need. And when the storm finally passes, we will stand firm, not because of our own strength, but because of the unwavering faith we placed in God's ability to see us through. Faith in the midst of adversity is the reminder that the storm does not define us. It is our trust in God's constant presence and power that determines our victory. In the face of uncertainty, our belief in God should remain unwavering, for He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. His faithfulness will carry us through every storm, and on the other side, we will find that we are stronger, wiser, and more equipped to face whatever comes next. Keep the faith, for God is with you in every season. Pain and struggle are never easy to bear, and at times they can feel overwhelming. It's natural to want to escape the discomfort, to wish for relief, or to wonder why such trials are part of our journey. But the truth is, pain and struggle are not pointless. They are not just random or senseless events that we endure. There is purpose in the pain. There is meaning in the struggle. God, in His infinite wisdom, allows these challenges because they are a vital part of the process that shapes us for the future He has planned. When we are faced with hardship, it's easy to focus solely on the negative aspects of the situation, the heartache, the loss, the frustration, or the fear. In those moments, it feels like the pain is all-encompassing. But God doesn't waste pain. He doesn't allow us to suffer just for the sake of suffering. Instead, He uses those very struggles to mold us, to refine us, and to prepare us for something greater. Think about the process of refining gold. The gold is placed in a furnace where it is subjected to intense heat. At first, this seems like a cruel process, a painful one. But the heat causes the impurities in the gold to rise to the surface, allowing them to be removed. After the refining process, what emerges is pure, valuable gold. In the same way, our struggles and our pain serve as a refining fire. They reveal the areas in our lives that need to be purified: our pride, our impatience, our insecurities, and our weaknesses. Through the process, God shapes us into the people we are meant to be, preparing us for the purpose He has designed for us. While we may not always understand the reasons behind our pain, we must remember that every challenge is an opportunity for growth. Our greatest growth often comes from the deepest struggles. Think about the times when you have been stretched the most. Those moments when you thought you couldn't go on, when you felt like giving up, and yet somehow you made it through. It is in those moments that your strength, your faith, and your resilience are built. God uses those times of pain to deepen your character, to make you more compassionate, more understanding, and more empathetic. You come out of the storm not just stronger, but wiser and more equipped to face the challenges ahead. God doesn't allow us to go through these struggles alone either. He is with us every step of the way, walking with us through the pain and guiding us through the difficulties. His presence is a constant source of comfort and strength. Even when we can't see a way out, He is there, providing the strength to endure and the hope to keep going. It is in these moments of dependence on God that we learn to trust Him more deeply, to lean into His grace, and to surrender to His will. The challenges we face also serve to develop qualities in us that we could not cultivate otherwise. Patience, perseverance, and humility are often born from the most difficult seasons of life. When things come easily, we don't always have the opportunity to develop these virtues. But when we are tested, when we are stretched beyond our limits, we are forced to grow. We begin to realize that we are not in control of everything, and that's when we learn to rely more fully on God. In the midst of pain, we may not see the end result, but God sees the bigger picture. He sees how this moment of struggle is shaping you into the person He has created you to be. He sees the future that is unfolding, and He knows how this experience will equip you for the next phase of your life. The pain may seem unbearable in the moment, but when you look back, you will see how it all fits together. You will see how it has made you stronger, more refined, and more capable of fulfilling the purpose that God has for you. Remember, pain is not permanent. It is a part of the journey, not the destination. Every challenge you face is temporary. The storm will pass, and when it does, you will emerge stronger, more resilient, and more aligned with the person God has called you to be. The struggles of today will one day be the stories of how you overcame, how you grew, and how you became the person you are destined to become. God allows pain because He is more concerned with our long-term growth than our immediate comfort. The trials we face today are preparing us for the future He has planned. They are building our character, refining our faith, and equipping us to step into the purpose He has for us. So when pain comes, don't run from it. Instead, lean into it. Trust in God's purpose for it, and know that in time you will emerge stronger, wiser, and more fully equipped for the journey ahead. When life storms come crashing down, it can feel like everything is shaking, our sense of security, our peace of mind, and even our faith. In those moments, it's easy to become overwhelmed by the noise, the uncertainty, and the fear that surrounds us. But there is something powerful that we can hold on to in these times: the promises of God. These promises are unshakable, eternal, and unbreakable. No matter what storm we face, God's word stands firm, and His promises will not fail. Every storm that comes into our lives is met with a promise from God. His promises of peace, strength, and deliverance are not contingent upon our circumstances. They are guaranteed, regardless of what is happening around us. These promises are not just comforting words. They are the bedrock of our faith. When the winds of doubt blow fiercely, when the waters of fear rise high, it is the unshakable promises of God that keep us anchored and steady. God's promise of peace is one of the most profound gifts He offers. Peace does not mean the absence of trouble, but rather the presence of God in the midst of it. Jesus told His disciples in John 14:27, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you." This peace is not like the peace the world offers, which is often fleeting and dependent on external circumstances. God's peace is steadfast, a deep assurance that no matter what chaos surrounds us, He is in control. This peace guards our hearts and minds even when the storm rages, allowing us to rest in His presence and trust in His plan. God also promises strength when we feel weak. In times of struggle, it's easy to feel like we can't keep going, that we've reached the limit of our endurance. But God's promise is that His strength is made perfect in our weakness. In Isaiah 40:29, He says, "He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak." When we feel like we have nothing left to give, God steps in and empowers us to keep moving forward. His strength is not based on our ability, but on His infinite power. We don't have to rely on our own strength. We can rely on His, knowing that He will equip us to face every challenge that comes our way. Another powerful promise is that of deliverance. God promises to deliver us from the trials and difficulties that seek to overwhelm us. In Psalm 34:19, we are reminded, "The righteous person may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him from them all." The storms may seem relentless, but God is faithful to rescue us from our troubles. His deliverance may not always come in the way we expect or in the timing we desire, but He will always provide a way out. His promises are unshakable because He is unshakable. He is a refuge and a stronghold, a safe place in the midst of the storm. When everything around us feels unstable, it is God's promises that keep us grounded. They are the anchor that holds us steady, even when the world seems to be falling apart. The storms of life may toss us back and forth, but God's promises never fail. They are the unmovable rock upon which we stand, no matter how fierce the waves crash against us. His word is our shield, and His promises are our firm foundation. We must hold tightly to God's promises, especially when we feel the weight of the storm pressing in on us. These promises are not just comforting thoughts to get us through difficult times. They are declarations of God's faithfulness. They remind us that He is with us, that He has not abandoned us, and that He will see us through. When the storm comes, it is not the absence of fear or struggle that defines us. It is the unshakable trust we place in God's promises that enables us to stand firm. Believing in God's promises is not always easy, especially when everything around us seems uncertain. But faith is not about relying on what we can see. It is about trusting in what we know to be true. We know that God is faithful, that He is good, and that He is true to His word. No storm, no matter how powerful, can break the promises that God has made to us. His word will not return void, and His faithfulness endures forever. In every season of life, no matter what we face, we can hold on to the promises of God. These promises are the anchor that will keep us grounded when everything else seems to be shaken. We don't have to face the storms alone, for God is with us, and His promises are unshakable. Trust in His peace, His strength, and His deliverance, and know that no matter what storm you are facing, you will emerge victorious, grounded in the unwavering promises of a faithful God. Persistence is one of the most powerful demonstrations of faith. When we face a storm, The natural instinct is often to resist, to fight back, or to look for a way to escape. However, true perseverance in the storm is not about trying to control or stop the storm. It is about trusting that God is in control and allowing Him to carry us through. Persistence in the midst of adversity is not just about enduring. It's about aligning ourselves with God's will, trusting that He has a purpose for our lives, even in the most difficult moments. Perseverance is not a passive act. It's an active choice to keep moving forward despite the obstacles and the challenges. It's easy to give up when things get tough. We might feel like the storm will never end, or that the weight of our circumstances is too much to bear. But in those moments, persistence becomes the expression of our trust in God, ability to bring us through. It's not about fighting the storm in our own strength, but about leaning into God's strength, knowing that He will provide the courage, grace, and wisdom we need to keep going. When we persist through a storm, we are aligning ourselves with God's purpose. Our persistence reflects a deep belief that God has not abandoned us, that He is still at work in our lives, and that He has a plan for our future. This doesn't mean that the storm will necessarily pass immediately, or that the path will become easier. In fact, sometimes it's through the struggle that God refines us, builds our character, and draws us closer to Him. Every step of persistence is a step of faith, a declaration that we trust God's plan more than we trust our own understanding. The key to persistence is not in trying to fight the storm head on, but in trusting that God will guide us through it. God never promised that we wouldn't face storms. In fact, He told us that we would experience trials and challenges in this life. But He also promised that He would never leave us or forsake us, and that His strength would be made perfect in our weakness. Persistence is about surrendering our need to control the situation and instead placing our trust fully in God. It's about continuing to move forward, even when we can't see the end of the storm, knowing that God is walking with us every step of the way. When we keep moving forward despite the obstacles, we also grow stronger in our faith. Each time we push through a challenge, we build resilience, patience, and a deeper understanding of God's faithfulness. There is a power that comes from staying the course, from not giving up, and from trusting that God is working behind the scenes, even when we can't see it. Through perseverance, we learn to rely on God in ways we never could have imagined. We discover that His grace is sufficient, that His peace is available, even in the midst of chaos, and that His presence is constant, even when everything around us feels uncertain. Persistence also allows us to reflect the character of Christ. Jesus Himself demonstrated perfect perseverance during His time on earth, especially in His suffering on the cross. He didn't resist the pain, nor did He fight the storm of His crucifixion. Instead, He trusted in the Father's will, knowing that the greater purpose was being fulfilled. In the same way, our persistence in the storm is a reflection of our trust in God's ultimate purpose. We may not fully understand why the storm is happening or how it will end, but we can trust that God is using it to fulfill His greater plan for our lives. Through persistence, we also become a testimony to others. When people see us weathering the storm with faith and trust in God, they are encouraged and strengthened. Our persistence becomes a living example of God's power at work in us. It shows others that it's possible to have peace in the storm, to continue moving forward despite the obstacles, and to trust God even when life doesn't make sense. In this way, our perseverance becomes a tool that God uses to inspire and encourage those around us. Persistence is not about fighting the storm in our own strength, but about surrendering our fears, our doubts, and our need to control, and trusting God to carry us through. It's a decision to keep moving forward, one step at a time, knowing that with each step, we are aligning ourselves with God's purpose for our lives. The storm may not always end the way we expect, but God's faithfulness will always see us through. By persisting in faith, we demonstrate our trust in His will, and we find that He is faithful to carry us, no matter how fierce the storm may be. Every storm, no matter how fierce or unrelenting, will eventually pass. It may seem impossible in the midst of the turmoil, but the clouds will part and the sun will shine again. It is in these moments as the storm begins to fade, that we can look ahead with anticipation, knowing that victory lies on the other side. Victory, however, is not just the absence of trouble or the resolution of our difficulties. It is the assurance that, through God's power, we will emerge stronger, wiser, and more aligned with the true purpose He has for us. The storm, though painful, has a purpose. It refines us, sharpens us, and prepares us for something greater than what we knew before. It's easy to focus on the discomfort of the storm itself, but God uses these very moments to shape us into the people He has destined us to become. We may feel beaten down by the waves, overwhelmed by the wind, and uncertain of how we will make it through. But when the storm passes, we will stand not just with relief, but with newfound strength and clarity. In every challenge we face, God is at work, even when we don't see it. He is using each trial to refine our character and deepen our trust in Him. When the storm is over, we will look back and realize that God has been with us every step of the way, working in us and through us to bring us to the place where we can step into the next season of our lives. The trials we face today are preparing us for the victories of tomorrow. They are not the end of the story, but part of the greater narrative that God is writing in our lives. Victory on the other side of the storm is not about escaping the hardship. It is about overcoming it with God's strength and emerging as a conqueror. The storm may have felt like it would destroy us, but with God's help we come out stronger, having learned to trust Him in ways we never could have imagined. The victory lies in the transformation that takes place within us. Through every struggle, God is working in us to build resilience, to develop faith, and to refine our character. When we emerge from the storm, we are not the same person who entered it. We are better equipped, more resilient, and more confident in God's ability to see us through whatever lies ahead. The ultimate victory, however, is God's victory. He is the one who enables us to stand firm, even in the fiercest of storms. It is through His power, His grace, and His faithfulness that we are able to rise above the challenges and emerge victorious. We are not fighting the storm in our own strength, but in the strength of the one who holds the world in His hands. This is the ultimate assurance that no matter how intense the storm, no matter how daunting the challenges we face, we will always emerge as conquerors through Christ. On the other side of every storm lies a greater understanding of who we are in Christ. The victories we experience are not just about overcoming external circumstances. They are about understanding that we are more than conquerors through Him who loved us. As we face trials and challenges, we learn to rely on God more fully, and we experience His faithfulness in ways that strengthen our trust and deepen our relationship with Him. Our victory is not just in the resolution of the storm, but in the deepening of our relationship with God and our alignment with His purpose. The storm will pass, and we will emerge on the other side, not just with a sense of relief, but with a sense of purpose and victory. We will be stronger, wiser, and more equipped for the journey ahead. God does not allow us to go through trials for no reason. Each storm is an opportunity for growth, and when we stand on the other side of it, we will see how God has been working in us and through us all along. Our victory is a testament to His faithfulness, His power, and His ability to bring us through every challenge. As we move forward, let us carry the assurance that on the other side of every storm lies victory, God's victory. And because of that, we can face the storms of life with confidence, knowing that they do not have the final word. With God, we will emerge as conquerors, stronger and more aligned with the purpose He has for us. So, hold on through the storm, knowing that victory is coming. It is not the storm that defines you, but the victory that follows it. As we come to the close of this journey, let us remember that the storms of life are not meant to destroy us. They are designed to refine us. In every storm, God's promises stand unshakable, His purpose unwavering, and His power undeniable. When you find yourself in the midst of a storm, do not despair, for the storm will pass. In fact, it is in the midst of the storm that you discover who you truly are, who God has called you to be. Your faith will be tested, your character will be shaped, and your trust in God will deepen. Understand this. The victory is not in avoiding the storm, but in trusting God through it. God's victory is your victory, and it is through your persistence, your unwavering trust in His promises, that you will emerge on the other side not only stronger, but wiser, more aligned with your purpose, and more intimately connected to the God who has been with you every step of the way. You were never created to be defeated, but to be a conqueror. In every challenge, God is working in you, preparing you for something greater. Believe that on the other side of every storm lies the victory that has been set aside for you. You are not just surviving the storm, you are overcoming it with God's strength. And in the end, you will emerge as a living testament to His power and His faithfulness. So, hold fast to His promises, persevere with faith, and trust that victory is inevitable. The storm will pass, and you will stand victorious in the purpose God has called you to fulfill. And when you do, you will see that the storm was never meant to harm you, but to position you for a future that is filled with His glory. Keep moving forward, keep believing. The best is yet to come.